Hello everybody, my name is X Factor and the Battlefield 1 Open Beta has 3 light tank variants available. We all know about the standard light tank, but meet his older, bigger, and much harder hitting brother, the Howitzer. An absolute massive punishing shell. It's extremely heavy with a low velocity, which gives it a huge arc. And for some defensive mechanisms, you get a very heavy, long-lasting smoke, but it has quite the cooldown. There's also an LMG, which does do some damage to light armor, and of course chews up infantry at close, medium, and even medium far range. And you can pretty much drop the trigger on it because it takes quite a while to overheat. And of course, if you do tap fire this, it does help with that cooldown, along with maintaining your accuracy at longer ranges, because whenever you're in a tank and you're trying to cap or defend flags or in the buildings, you are definitely a target, especially with the sandstorm, where people can sneak up with you with anti-tank grenades, or as you just saw, some dynamite. So it's very important to use your light machine gun against that infantry, because the primary shell has quite the arc on it, and you can see the front of the tank with the howitzer on it is shortened. So whenever you're looking at shooting at longer ranges, you really have to arc your primary shell. It's extremely hard to use at medium to long range. Don't bother wasting it on infantry. It's not like the standard light tank, which you can basically snipe infantry with the primary. You really have to line up your shots and use them carefully. But here's the trade-off. Any armor gets close, you're going to do massive damage. On light tanks, you could do 43 to 46 damage if you hit them in treads at the right angle. You can absolutely destroy a light tank if they've taken any damage, usually within 2 shots. How about heavy tanks and land ships? Well, if you hit them right, it only takes 3 shots. And if they've taken any sort of damage, if they have 20 or 25 damage off the top, you can absolutely 2-shot them. Now, the light machine gun actually does a little damage on the planes, but of course it always makes sense if you can't hit the pilot or the gunner to actually aim for the wings, because it does a lot more damage and actually affects the way they fly, forcing them to actually manually reload. So whenever the train comes in, it brings death and destruction. You definitely don't want to tangle with this because there are 6 guns on it. Sure, there's a couple anti-air flat cannons on it, but it can absolutely tear you up. But as you see the health of the train going down at the scoreboard on the right, this thing does a ton of damage. It's probably the best light tank you want to have if the train is rolling. But remember, if you get disabled, you're in a lot of trouble. If you get caught out in an open space and there's a standard light tank or artillery truck like this, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, even if you're connecting with your shots. Because of the arc, because of the slow projectile, there is a lot of stuff that you have to be able to handle. So cover is your friend. And with that being said, you can actually shoot over cover as we connect a shot right here. Not a full shot because it wasn't full damage, but enough of a splash. And you can see how high we're actually aiming the howitzer shell. It is pretty darn archy. But again, if anybody gets close, it will absolutely tear them up. And imagine using the lightning repair, something, again, I forgot to do because I didn't realize how it worked. That's 30 health on your tank, allowing you to stay mobile, because that is the death sentence for a tank. If it gets disabled, good infantry are going to keep piling on the damage, whether it's a simple frag round, a light anti-armor grenade, a heavy anti-armor grenade, AK bullet, anything that does damage. And there you can see how short I missed with that arc. So we're going to line up another shot and actually bang these out the back and finish up with the LMG. So with any light tank, it's all about positioning and being able to spot manual repair. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to re-peek, because if you re-peek with the side of your tank and you take a shot, you might be disabled right there. You can't even cover yourself. So it's very important to make sure you grab those shots, disable them, so you can get back to cover, maybe do a spot repair, but more importantly, don't let them do a manual repair. It is a rather lengthy sequence, which takes 5 or so seconds, so as long as you sneak a little bit of damage, even if it splashes in front of their treads to do 2 or 3 damage, it will absolutely ruin their repair. And the other thing you have to be careful about is the reload process. You have to start the reload process. You constantly have to spam it, and until it completes itself, you won't get that shell. So that's another thing that you have to keep in mind. You can't just roll up with a light tank, or heavy tank and destroy everything. So here you see some 45 damages on light tanks. This is where it hits the hardest. These side shots, 2 shells just did roughly 90 damage. If it would have been hurt, rolled up with a little damage, it would have absolutely destroyed it. It doesn't matter if it's the heavy tanks or the land ships. This thing is absolutely destructive. But again, it does have massive weaknesses. Any sort of distance or open area, especially if you're ignoring pesky infantry that might have anti-armor grenades, dynamite, or cavalry, which again have replenishing anti-armor grenades. So what do you guys think of the Howitzer? Do you see yourself using this in certain situations, or do you think you can run this as your primary light tank? Any other questions or comments you guys might have, leave them down below. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you guys soon.